This is the machine.
Hello and welcome to the first episode in the series, I guess, of my overall restoration, which is to deal with the fuel injection system, the massively complicated Bosch K-Jetronic continuous injection system, fuel injection system thing, which makes me wish I had a carburettor, to be honest. Hopefully it will work at some point, but this is the journey through K-Jetronic and the learning curve. And we start with the Warm Up Regulator, a misunderstood little lump of metal that sits at the front of the engine, around which, if it didn't work, then the engine wouldn't work. So it's vitally important to the enjoyment of the car. Anyway, let's get into it. Because it's raining so much, I'm going to get on and do the warm-up regulator. I've got a kit coming, but today I'm going to try and take it to bits. I don't know how the expensive kits come with new screws. I think I'm going to have to get the impact driver on that. This could be super expensive if it breaks. That's a bit knackered. So this one, it's just see if that did anything to this one. Oh, there we go.
Is it corrosion coming in? You can see why I put the new ones in there. Oh, it's broken. Oh no. Okay, that one moved. That one moved. And that one moved. Hopefully we can... that one. That one is good. That one's good too. Lots of corrosion. I do wonder how I think there's
actually nuts on the other side. It shouldn't be too bad. That's moving. Okay. Right, let's take it to the bench. Okay, 4 screws out. Looking like that. Yeah. So that's the fuel comes in here. This little plunger and a spring that operates on the plunger, I guess, and then this electrical assembly here. It looks in pretty good nick. You blow it out, there's lots of, and then maybe see if it works. Put 12 volts into there and see if it works. That gasket is shot. I wonder if this is full of fuel. I guess it must be. This fills with fuel. Yeah, it must be, because that's the outlet. Interesting. So I blew it out with air. Still looks really clean. Yeah. You can see a date mark, it says 80 in there. So I presume it hasn't been replaced. But this is, so I put air into this port here to blow through, and this popped open. So this, I guess this gasket will be part of the kit. Yeah. That. Oh. I presume that was once rubber. Oh, that's interesting. So that separates and then the next piece, I think, is to get this connector off. I won't disassemble this any further until I get the gaskets, because there's some really tiny shit in there that's like a little nut, special little nut it looks like, with an Allen bolt. I think I get instructions with it too. They'll send me instructions by email. I don't want it to spring off. Very careful, don't want to over tighten it. That's it. It's off. that down. And just off this post. There it is. There it is. Excellent. Man, that's so beautifully mechanical. So that's two kind of a world of bimetallic strips and switches, all in really nice condition. It's like, what's that? 29 ohms, 47 ohms. I guess there must be two coils in there or something. I'll have to look up how to test those. I got the banjo out. That came out quite easily with a 12mm. This one looks a bit trickier. Okay, put that in the vise. The angle. Right. Okay. That's good. One's out. Alright, so all that's left in this bit are these four here, which I hope will be alright. Get the snap on them. That's one. They are tight. Nasty. Put them in the vise and just strike them. So by hammering them and then spraying a little bit of lubricant on, they're undone. Very much do not want to break this because new ones or refurbished ones are a couple of £100 from what I can see. So. And this is one of the things that can stop it running properly, as far as I understand. It's pretty critical. Okay, so there's a plate, 4 screws. There's a little collet under there. I guess that's there's a plate, like a shim. Presume it's magnetic. Stainless steel, I think. Right. Okay, so there's a shim. Call it a shim. And then this, I wonder, imagine that, those are, so this is open to the atmosphere, this bit. No, it's not, that's where the screw holes are. So that, I wonder if that screws in. Or is it a press fit? There appears to be a seal in there. Looks like a seal. Doesn't look to be in bad condition. Oh, and there's a gauze, which may be able to be poked out if I had a thin enough tool. Gauze down in there. Figure out how this bit comes out. Oh, I think I was mistaken earlier. That looks like a vacuum line now. And so those two are the inlet and the outlet for the fuel. I guess that's the inlet and that's the outlet. And then somehow all this goes together. I'll have to find a diagram somewhere. See if I can undo this. It's coming undone pretty easily. I guess these two bits clamp this gasket in. God, this is so complicated. So that bolt comes out. I don't know if that is sticking. Thought I had a bit of a disaster. The diaphragm ripped here. I've just looked at the repair kit contents, and it comes with new diaphragm and screws and things, so I've just been drilling these rivets out and punching them through to get this apart, ready for when the kit arrives. Bit nerve-wracking that, because I thought maybe I'd got myself into having to spend another couple of £100. Excellent. Clean that up, but the remains there. Cool. That's that. Disassembled. And from what I can tell, this doesn't need to be disassembled. Just need to clean the mesh that's at the bottom of this hole and replace that O-ring. Get back to that when the kit arrives. Now, before I forget about this for a while, I wanted to test to see if this the electric side is alright. So I've got three coils, I guess. So I should have one that's 47 and one that's 29. Put it onto resistance. Okay, so the resistance of the cables is 0.1 of an ohm. And then, so this first coil $75. Well, that one's 29. Spot on. And that one's 47. All right, so okay, don't pretend to understand that, but there's two readings that match, so I figure that that is perfect. That's really good news. You can assemble, and it should work. So it's a bit further on now. I've learned quite a lot about the fuel system in the car, and I didn't film when I put the warm-up regulator back together again. So I'm going to take it apart because I need to adjust it so that I can adjust it on the car. I'll go into that in a bit, but it's deceptively simple, but the principles are kind of interlocking, and getting all the pressures right is a nightmare. Anyway, we'll see inside how it goes back together, and I'll describe why I need to do this. Alright, so before we get it into bits, I should probably go through the bits I got wrong when in the earlier videos. So sits on the car like this, that's the front of the car that way. The inlet is here, so this comes from the fuel distributor and it goes in through the gauze in there, which can often be apparently part of the reason why the control pressure is wrong. And this is the outlet that goes back to the fuel distributor and into the return to the tank. That is a vacuum input. That is the one that is not generating vacuum at idle. This is also a vacuum, and this is the one that goes, I guess, on the side of the throttle that generates vacuum at idle. And so these have to be connected correctly for this, because the vacuum will it will take away control pressure, so it will suck from here and decrease the control pressure, so that when you're accelerating you can get an enrichment. So at idle there's lots of suction, and so the control pressure is higher. When you open the throttle, the vacuum goes away, and that means that the control pressure goes down, which means that the fuel system can put more fuel into the engine, and we'll probably talk about the fuel distributor as I understand it. Anyway, it's a massive learning curve, all this stuff, and I'm still not quite right, but that's how I understand how this works. And this is quite a complicated one because it's got two vacuum ports on it that can signal depending on what the engine's doing to make it more drivable. And then this electrical connector is connected to the bimetallic strip inside, like we tested earlier, and that again moves the plunger up and down when it's cold and warming up to reduce the control pressure, so that you're richer when you're warming up. So there's a few things going on in here which are quite interesting. Okay, so first bit of the repair is to put this new gasket on here, and you rebuild it as you took it to bits, but the only difference is that there's little tiny nuts and bolts instead of rivets to put it all back together again. And then what happens is, I guess, when you put vacuum on this one, which is the one that has got vacuum at idle, it can move this up and down depending on what's happening with the vacuum signal. So, and that moving up and down will alter the pressure on the diaphragm at the top to increase or decrease the control pressure on the fuel distributor. So the other things that are new seal around here. Like I said previously, that's that new diaphragm on there, and new shiny bits on this bit. And then in here there is a diaphragm in there, so there's a new steel diaphragm inside there, and a new O-ring in there, and then this big new O-ring over here, and that's it really. Apart from some of the hardware I didn't get in the kit. Bolts, I'm still using the old ones, which are a bit rusty. And so then the other thing is to set the pressures. You've got two options here, which sets the cold control pressure, and here, which sets the warm control pressure. So the cold control pressure thing is the thing that's attached to this bimetallic strip here, and as the engine warms up or you apply current to it, it bends the bimetallic strip, and as it gets warmer it moves upwards like that and lets the spring put more force onto the diaphragm, and so the control pressure goes up, which makes the mixture leaner on the fuel distributor. So it's effectively a bit like a choke when it's warming up in its simplest form, and then by the addition of the vacuum you can change the behaviour of the control pressure in response to throttle openings. And I guess if the throttle's wide open and you're doing 1,000,000 miles an hour on the Autobahn, it leans out the engine with the other vacuum port, which is the one that's, I can't remember what they call it, the one which is only activated when the throttle's open and there's lots of air moving by. Anyway, lots going on in this. So, and for the purposes of why I've taken this apart today, I've reset the post to the top here, and I've pushed that out so I can actually go about setting the warm control pressure and the cold control pressure more logically when it's connected to the car. And that's critical because my experience so far is if the control pressures are out, it either runs massively lean and fouls the plugs, or it won't start, or it'll bog down, or it won't do what it's supposed to do. So this thing is absolutely critical to the way that the injectors work. Right, okay, so now I'm going to put it back together again. And that's it, really. The other thing I learned, and a bit of a confession here, is that you can only go one way with these things, right? You can only bash them downwards. So you can only lower the control pressure for the cold one or raise it for the warm one. If you go too far, you've got to take it apart and redo it. So one of the mods you can make is to drill and tap this post here, which I have, and you put a nut or a bolt in here so that you can actually leverage it and move that up and down. So you've got two-way adjustment on that. But I'm a precise driller, as you've already seen from my previous videos, but I don't know if you can see there's daylight. Is there daylight? Yeah, just there. Yeah, where I drilled off center, and now on the post, you can't see it very easily, but there's a hole. I've drilled off center, so there's a hole, and I've weakened it. So it seems to be working fine, and I can seal the hole, but it's a bit irritating. It's like, yeah, anyway, right, so we're back together, as I said. Oh, the other top tip is that this plunger, you can assemble it, and then you can locate it in some grease, and so it stays upright, so that when you put it back together, it goes in the little hole in the top here. Or alternatively, you can do the other thing, is put the plunger in the hole in the top, the little seat there, and then assemble up to it. The grease will hold it in. I think it's better to put the plunger in the top here than this way. It's like easier to catch, a bit like in-flight refueling, or not, as the case may be. Right, let's see if we can put it back together. Okay, so put the bimetallic strip back over the post, and then feed the electrical connection in. And just for temporarily, I'm going to put the clip back on and just get that back into place later, but that's out of the way. And then we put this in. You've got to make sure that the bimetallic strip is in the middle, and it tends to twist a little bit. Can you see? Yeah. So I'm going to move it over. The light's suddenly gone. There's a washer here, and then it goes onto the spindle. So that's engaged now, and I can just keep my finger, keep it over the. I'm just going to turn the light on. So it's centered on the thing by. I can feel it. Yeah, it's very willful. This spring. Okay, just tighten that a little. Don't think it needs any more than that. And that, as far as my wonky eyes can see, is over the top. So then I can take the little plunger, it's got the grease on, and I can stick it in the little top hat. In there, so that it stands right there. Then what we can do, I'm sure that's upright. We then assemble this. So there's a little spring in the middle, and then the spring on the outside. Spring. Just get that way. And so this one remains upright. This one comes down from above. And then I can feel a bit of resistance. And now we're ready to put the screws in. Temporarily, well, not temporarily, just locate them. And I shan't bore you with the rest. So that ends the episode on this little chunk of metal. Before I started, I didn't realise quite how important it was to the whole thing. Choke, enrichment, kind of making that fuel distributor work. Anyway, it's ready to go back on now and set the pressures, and hopefully the car will run fantastically now that I've applied my precision methodologies to it. We shall see. What are you doing? What are you doing? Don't. No. Oh, what's that? Oh, it's half a fuel distributor. You don't want to look too closely at that. That comes in a later episode.